Food is a delicate matter in Palworld, especially because there is so much you can do wrong, and the game is not really forthcoming in explaining to you how this exactly works and what you have to look out for. Now, to make this clear, I'm focusing here on the aspect of your base pals and get the most out of them when it comes to work. This is not for you when you're on your adventures out there in the big world. You can literally eat everything, and most of the time you will eat the buff food, which gives you the stats you need to overcome an enemy or to move faster from A to B. So again, that is completely up to you. What we were focusing on here is when it comes to the base pals. Also, this is a beginner guide. This is not for people who have already reached the end game and still want to get a little bit of work speed out of their pals. Because yes, there is buff food later on, which is much more powerful than the actual buff food I will mention here, but you will not get that till level 40 plus. Like, we are talking about very late mid-game to end-game food, and you want that food right now. Right? So one of the items you will get much later is the minestrone. Like, the minestrone is really good, but we would talk about that when we're getting to it. But this is one of the items you can upgrade to. And it's pretty straightforward, right? When you are getting to the mid to end game and you can actually get the better buff food, it's literally the same food you have been producing with a different name, but it does everything just a little bit better, and it was spotted easily when we have talked about the base food here in the beginner guide. So let's finally start. First, let's talk about the feed box. Everything you put in your feed box will be eaten from the left to the right. So this is the first item they will always finish before they are then trying to eat this item, and so on and so forth. Now, I have only one item in here, but that's the idea. Also very important, if you have only one feed box, you are good, right? The pals will go to that feed box and they're fine. But if you should decide to have multiple feed boxes, it is very important to note that all the pals will go to the closest feed box. And yes, that means they are thinking in a 2D plane. So let's say I would build a platform here, a tower, and they would reach the sky. Now I would put a feed box on the top. The pals would still go there, even though this would be technically closer. But that's not how they calculate it. Again, they see everything on a 2D plane, and this feed box up in the sky would still be closer to the place where they are working all the time, and they would go all the way up, even if that would take much, much longer than instead of just going to this feed box here. So please keep that in mind when you are building multiple feed boxes. They will always take the closest on a 2D plane. But now, let's talk about hunger. So you've probably already noticed that all your pals are coming with this bar down here with the food, which is basically their hunger bar and how much they can eat. The first pals, pretty simple, have 1 to 2 food they need, and they're super straightforward, right? But then later on, when you are getting bigger pals, you will also realize that their food increases, right? You can see right here when I'm going over, and they are becoming much more hungry. And now, so for an example here, the Whisper needs 450 food to be completely filled. So yes, that means your berries will not cut it at some point. Wait, why not? I have hundreds of berries, Mo. I have even cooked the berries. Well, congratulations, you did the bare minimum. And again, if you don't have anything else, that's completely fine, right? Give them at least baked berries. Don't let them go hungry. That's the worst thing you can do. But doesn't really help, because there is a misunderstanding how eating works in Palworld when it comes to your base pals. And that is, you see the nutrition score here, right? 21. And now you might think, okay, if I'm just throwing 400 baked berries into my feed box, well, then they're just eating as much as they need to fulfill their needs, right? Yeah, wrong. Pals are coming to your feed box, like this pal here right now. They're taking one item, eat it, and then they're going back to work. So, depending on how much they could actually fulfill their need for hunger, they will come back faster to the feed box or not. So yes, if you have only baked berries in here, which are only giving 21 nutrition, and you have a pal which needs hundreds of food to fulfill the need for hunger, then they would just work for like half a minute or so, come back to the box, eat again, work for half a minute again, then eat again and rinse and repeat, right? So what you want is you want food with high nutrition, or to an extent. So let's talk about the food you should get. Like as I already said, baked berries, bare minimum. What you should get first, if you can immediately, is jam-filled buns. The red berries you already have. And then, of course, there is the flour, which is also very easy to acquire right at the beginning of the game. And so you can start to actually produce jam-filled buns in large quantities, and they are much better than the berries. And I highly recommend them for the early game. But then you are, of course, finding out, hey, wait a second, what's with the rest of the food? Like, there's definitely some food in here which I could probably put together, and they are much easier to obtain. So why am I not doing that? Because it's meat. And the problem with meat is you cannot really put down meat plantations, right? You have to go out there, you have to murder pals, or you have to have large quantities of pals in your base you then murder. But that's not really efficient, that's not really automatic. So meat-based food, unfortunately, is not the way to go for your pals in your base. Again, if you're out there in your adventures, meat-based food is completely fine. But again, for your pals in your base, not so much. What you want to get the moment you can is a salad. The salad is, if not the best food item to obtain. Why? Well, it's super easy to produce. It just needs lettuce and tomatoes. Where can you get them? Well, you can get them from merchants, or you are going to the second island and you will find just in this area like a lot of pals who will drop the seeds for that. And I would say with about level 18, you can go there, right? And then you can just farm the seed very quickly if you not have already found it in a chest, or if you have not already found it in a merchant, or with a merchant. And then you can start to produce the salad. Why the salad? Well, first, you can see it gives 84 nutrition, which is pretty high. But more importantly, it gives a buff. It gives a 30% work speed buff. And this is why the salad is also really good and might be even the best, because the nutrition value you get is decent, but the buff only lasts 10 minutes. So let's say you are later on producing the Minestro, right? The problem with that is, yes, they will give the same buff, but much more nutrition, which also means that pals with lower hunger values will come back not every 10 minutes. That means the buff runs out, and then they are not getting that 30% work speed buff. With the salad, though, they are getting a good balance between nutrition, right? And so they will definitely come back every 10 minutes to get the buff upgraded. And that is completely fine, right? It's not a problem when a pal is going to eat every 5, 6, 7 minutes. It's a problem when a pal literally interrupts their work every minute, right? So the salad, in my opinion, is the best choice out there. Now, what's with the cake? Oh yeah, if you are a player who is coming back from previous Palworld iterations, and you remember that the cake is the cake is absolutely insane, well, then you remember right. The problem with the cake is manifold, though, especially for beginners. First, you need a lot of ingredients, as you can see here. Second, the workload of one cake is insanely high, and for beginners, I do not recommend it. Third, you need cake for breeding. And so if you want to utilize it for that, you don't have that much cake at the beginning. Now, yes, it gives insane nutrition values, right? And that means that a pal will probably not interrupt their work for 20 minutes or so, which sounds amazing. But as I said, this 30% work buff the salad gives you is just too good. It's just too good because it stacks with all the other buffs you can give your pals to work faster and to upgrade them. And I do not recommend the cake anymore. I know this is debatable, and some people will say, no, I always gave my pals cake. I want to give them cake. You can still do that, but again, for the amount of resources you need, for the amount of workload, especially for early players, again, keep in mind, this is not an endgame guide. This is not for people who have the strongest, like, cooking pals and all that in their base. This is for the people who are still starting out, and I just don't recommend the cake there. And again, that 30% work speed buff, pretty golden. So what you want to do is you want to get to the salad as fast as possible and focus on that. And then you should be golden when it comes to your base production. Now, with that said, if you still have some ideas or some questions, let me know down below in the comments. Also, if you enjoyed this video and you think it was helpful, please leave a like. If you're new to the channel, you want to see more Palworld videos, live streams we are doing here on YouTube, and also other survival games and RPGs, you came to the right channel, and I would appreciate if you subscribe to the Mole RP channel. With that said, thank you so much for watching. Stay safe, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.